Greetings, brothers. Welcome back. The fire's been burning all night long. We've been tending to it. Hope that you've had the chance to tend to your needs and the needs of those who are around you, those that you're connected with. Because today we're moving into that direction. Yesterday was a day for us to explore our grief and community. And today we're moving into connection and service and being in the world. We're grateful you are here. And for those of you who were not able to be with us yesterday, my name is Brad Pickle, and I'm the administrator of Illuman. And we are so happy that you have made the time for yourself and for us to build this container where that we can continue to do our work together. Illuman is a brotherhood of men. Across the world, we have brothers gathered with us, and we are grateful for them. I know that some of you have questions regarding yesterday's sessions, and let me just say quickly that all of the sessions are posted on the Soularize 2021 live website. You'll see the links, they're toward the top of the page. There's two links. So illumin.org/Soularize 2021 live. You can watch those at a later date, and we're recording these sessions today so that if you have to leave. But I don't want to take up any more of your time with these announcements. We have three brothers that are going to be walking a journey, and we'll be walking with them today. And with that, I will introduce Gino to introduce his merry band of brothers to us and invite them into this space. So Gino, if you want to unmute yourself, welcome, brother. You now have the talking stick.
Good morning. Muy buenos dias, brothers. Wow. Happy Sunday and a joyous Soularize. You know, just good morning from Albuquerque, New Mexico. My name is Gene Gallegos. My nickname is Gino, and I serve on Illuman since my 2015 MROP in Northern California. I have served as a convener. I am now the convener of conveners, a member of the Men of Color Council within Illuman as well. And I'm here and with you with my two brothers, Bob Juarez and Giovanni Perez. So please introduce yourself, brothers.
Well, my name is Bob Juarez, and I did my MROP in 1996, so I'm one of the dinosaurs among us. And I serve currently on the Wisdom Elder Council and Illuman en Español, y quiero extender la bienvenida a todos los que hablan español aquí en esta reunión. It's good to be with you, brothers. I'm also part of SoCal. And now I hand it over to Giovanni.
Buenos dias, brothers, hermanos. It is so good to be with you, isn't it? Yes, yes, yes. I must admit, we all miss hugging each other, and you've been saying smelling each other. So there is a dog, and it's coming with his mom, and they meet another dog, and the mom says, say hello to your tia, say hi to your aunt, smell her ass. So anyways, we've been talking about we unable to smell each other, but Soularize has been good to us. It's been good to me. I'm from Southern California, and I also serve in the Wisdom Elders Council, and I serve in Illuman en Español. What a treat to be here with you, brothers. I love you, and I hug you across the distances. Aho.
Well, brothers, once again, we have about an hour to spend together, and we're looking at this as just a feast for our famished brothers. I know when I first did my MROP, I thought that I was hungry for this type of work, but when I got to the MROP and I got to hang out with Illumin men, I realized I was famished for this type of community. And COVID has served as a catalyst for all of us to bring us to our knees as we touch base with the famished part of our souls, of our humanity, of our brothers and sisters across the board. And I am so grateful that Illumin's heart and vision is expanding, its willingness, its attitudes are being transformed as we walk deeper into this journey together and are willing to be transformed at every level. And it is a deep honor to be here with you as we speak of very intimate personal experiences of both service and connection. How are we served through connection? And I will do my best to honor the women and men who have inspired me, who have brought me to this day and this work for this extraordinary conversation. Greetings from New Mexico, from Albuquerque, a land of the Pueblo and tribal peoples, a land of the mestizos, where there's new Mexicans, people who have been here for a while, and fresh Mexicans who have also mixed in this wonderful land. So greetings from this place. And I acknowledge the mixed and the pure, whatever level, at every level of man that is here, the LGBTQI plus and beyond, every walk, every experience, every wound, every joy, every sorrow, every hunger, every memory, every forgetfulness. You are honored here. One of the signs of the MROP is, one of the themes is there will be no other sign but the sign of Jonah, the whale. And as we all breathe, and isn't it amazing that COVID is a respiratory disease that is stopping or impeding the breath. And the whale takes us deeper. It takes Jonah where he does not want to go, deeper than Jonah ever possibly imagined he could go. But it is in conversations like this during COVID with men in Illumin and beyond that we can go deeper into those conversations, deeper in the quest to transform our lives. So I'm going to talk about how COVID has really served as a catalyst for me in both connection and service. So when COVID first hit, of course it was COVID-19. So the men that I hang around with in Illumin and men in circles of recovery are thankfully men of action. And how can we pray about this COVID-19? So I really did a lot of praying around 19. And I thought this might last 19 days. And the 19 days turned maybe 19 weeks, maybe 19 months. So it was really a question for me of what are 19 actions that I can do can I meditate for 19 minutes? Can I have 19 conversations, write 19 letters, 19 emails, social posts? And that has been wonderful for me. I've been able to connect with men. Our Saturday morning men here in Illumin, New Mexico, sponsored a 12-step recovery step study during COVID. It's called Male Anon, M-A-L-E Anon. And we'll post more information on the chat if you want to learn more about that process. But I was honored to meet with men in a virtual step study that I've never met. And to this day, I've never met these men face to face. And we met for 13 weeks every Saturday. Men from Boston and Seattle, Washington, California, New Mexico. And we went deep, brothers, in this sacred process of trying to connect and connecting from the soul in that process. Another beautiful part that, and I was served by that. You know, I was born and raised in southern New Mexico in Las Cruces, right outside of El Paso, Texas, and near the Chihuahua border. So I grew up in a place where two worlds mixed and blend into each other. I was born and raised there. I've done some growing up, some emotional sobriety and recovery that I'm grateful for, but I've really been assembled in Illuman. My heart space assembled, the archetypes assembled in Illuman. And one of the ways that I've been assembled in Illuman and during COVID is I became willing to, hungry for that next breath. And I discovered on YouTube, the Native Wellness Institute, NWI, Native Wellness Institute. I'll post this in the chat. And they, like you, like I thought, oh, COVID's gonna last a couple of weeks, and it ended up lasting more and more and more. And their vision was to offer good medicine from the tribal elders. How do we get through a pandemic? Well, the tribal elders have gotten through a lot of pandemics and a lot of pain, and have gone through a lot of grief and healing. And they started to post and share that you can still access on YouTube. Go to the NWI. Wonderful teachings from the tribal elders on grief, healing, joy, pain, healthy masculinity, healthy femininity, addiction, sadness, self-care, wonderful teachings. And what I heard from them that I share with you is we address the grief, we address the pain so that we can get to the healing, so that we can get to the transformation. And these tribal elders access their ancestors, and they've left us a popcorn trail of healing through this wilderness. And it was in this process of daily listening to them that I realized, oh my gosh, Jesus came from a tribal community, the 12 tribes of Israel. He was a tribal man in the desert who walked with his brothers and broke traditions. He didn't get married. He didn't have lots of children. He hung out with the fishermen, the men of ill repute in the world. So much, tax collectors, prostitutes, women of every walk. So much that people around him thought, is he one of them? He hangs around them a lot. Is he one of them? And I was able to understand it because of COVID that, wow, Jesus was a tribal man. And he's calling me and you and all of us to our indigenous roots before empires and colonization and the mind games and machismo and blah, 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 and homophobia and shame and blame and judgment and condemnation. Before that came, go back to who we are as beloved children of God. All of us belonging, radically belonging in this conversation, in this world. No one up or below, side to side. This black picture behind me, I started, because of COVID, I bought big paintings. I highly recommend it. Big, not paintings, big canvases. And I bought black paint because that's what I felt we were in the sacred womb, the sacred darkness. Blink your eyes. And every time you blink your eyes, it is the womb of the sacred blessing reminding you, beloved, beloved, beloved. as you go into your walk later today or maybe in the week, close your eyes and watch the dance of light in that darkness. So one of the other things that I learned in the Native Wellness Institute, my MROP name, when I claimed that belonging, that radical belonging in my MROP, is my given name is Eugenio Eugene, which means well-born, buen nacido. But it was only through the MROP in that moment that I realized I am well-born. I am buen nacido, just like everybody else, and to claim it. So through the inspiration of the NWI, one of the things that I've come to do is I face the 4 directions or the 7 directions when grief or sadness or confusion approach or anger. And I call forth the best in myself from the 4 directions. I'll look to the north and say, buen nacido. I look to the east, buen nacido. I look to the south, buen nacido. I look to the west, buen nacido. Up, below, and within, buen nacido. And I try to remember who I am. I try to remember with every blink of my eye who I am. And I share that with you. The men of color within Illuman meet once a month. And you're invited. If you identify as a man of color, or if you are raising a mixed son of color or grandson, or have people in your family, you are welcome. Those brothers offer a fierce sense of belonging, a true nonviolent warrior approach to living into the vision that Illumin has of everybody belonging. I was inspired last night. I'm reminded, my mom died in March 2020, right before her funeral was the first week of March, and the next weekend, everything closed down. So the process of infinite healing and infinite resurrection has been a call that I'm living into. I grieve her death, her transition, and yet the paradox that I know and I experience a deeper connection with her. I know she is more alive and more well, and I have felt that and I feel that even now. And I was reminded last night of, the whole topic of Alzheimer's. What human being on the planet does not have spiritual Alzheimer's? That we all forget. I'm with you in this moment and I feel the presence of God. And 10 minutes from now, I'll be on my knees scrambling for what I felt. We have these moments of great insight, great joy, great knowing. And the next, it's gone. And that seems to be part of our common suffering, that we have this spiritual amnesia, the spiritual Alzheimer's of who we are. I want to share a poem. The Beatitudes have also come to mean something great to me like never before. I really feel it's the indigenous Jesus. It was his call to what a good human being looks like, a good man, a good woman, a good child of God, to expand our hearts to the poor in spirit. Isn't every man in Illumin? We've accessed Zoom on a Sunday morning because at one aspect we're poor in spirit, we are searching. And there's so many others who would love to have this access to Zoom. He asks us to expand, be with those who mourn. Black Lives Matter, Me Too, the LGBTQI+. Be with those who thirst for righteousness, who be nonviolent and be merciful. Offer the mercy that we so much want to receive. The clean of heart, to offer our tattered, impure, well-worn hearts, and then offer them up to be transformed. The peacemakers, God, we need peacemakers within our minds, our bodies, our spirits, our homes, our communities, and the persecuted. to stop our addiction to the scapegoat. I'm going to read a prayer, and it's called a poem. I have 2 minutes left. It's by Francisco X. Alacron, and it's called Prayer or Oración. And I see some beatitudes in it. And I'm going to add a few things to make it I'm going to illuminize it, indigenize it. And this is his words with my little changes. I want a God as my accomplice, who spends nights in houses of ill repute, or maybe spends his days on Zoom with men of ill repute, and gets up late on Saturdays. A God who whistles through the streets and trembles before the lips of his lover. A God who waits in line at the entrance of movie houses and likes to drink cafecito, café con leche. A God who spits blood from COVID and doesn't even have enough for bus fare home. A God knocked unconscious by the billy club of a policeman at a nonviolent demonstration. A God who pisses out of fear before the flaring electrodes of torture. A God who hurts to the last of his bone and bites the air in pain. A jobless God, a striking God, a hungry God, a famished God, a fugitive God, an exiled God, an enraged God. A God who longs from jail, from prison, for a change in the order of things. I want, brothers, a more godlike God.
Oh,
Oh, thank you, Gino. You really exemplify in a very archetypal way what does it mean to speak from the heart. And I honor and I thank you for that. Brothers, again, good morning, buenos dias. I would like to start by sharing with you a poem by Mary Oliver, said with the voices of several young people. So please, Andy, go ahead and share for all of us to see.
What I have learned so far.
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 What I have learned so far, by Mary Oliver.
Meditation is owed and honorable.
So why should I not sit
Every morning of my life.
On the hillside, looking into the shining world.
Because properly attended to, delight, as well as havoc,
is suggestion.
Can one be passionate about the just,
The ideal,
The sublime and the holy and yet commit to no labor in its cause? I don't think so.
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 Meditation is old and honorable. So why should I not sit every morning of my life on the hillside, looking into the shining world? Because properly attended to, delight as well as havoc is suggestion. Can one be passionate about the just, the ideal, the sublime, and the holy, and yet commit to no labor in its cause? I don't think so. All summations have a beginning. All effect has a story. All kindness begins with the sown seed. Thought buds toward radiance. The gospel of light is the crossroads of indolence or action. Be ignited or be gone.
Thank you, Andy. There is a passion in our hearts that has been ignited only by being loved by God. One of the most important lessons that I heard Richard, our beloved Richard Rohr, say once is that there are only 2 times in the gospel stories in which Jesus actually hears the voice of his Father. And it is after the baptism and at the transfiguration. And the message is the same. You are my beloved. You are my beloved. And I am pleased with you. There is a passion in our hearts that has been ignited by being loved by God. When that sparkle has ignited our hearts, we have come to know the one true God, a loving, accepting, tender God. The Jesuit Greg Boyle says then that once you know that tender God, you have no trouble firing all the other gods. Brothers, one of our touchstones states that we are men who honor the earth and serve the whole human community. Again, Greg Boyle proposes and suggests a different way of approaching service, and I paraphrase. It'll be better, he says, if we go to the peripheries, to the poor, the needy, the outcasts, the minorities, not to change them, but allow them to change us. Many a times we think that we have something that others need. And I suppose that is true at a certain level. But if we are honest with ourselves, and if we serve others with the right spirit, with the right heart, we will have to admit, brothers, that in the giving, we receive so much more than we can possibly give. Again, another story from Greg Boyle. True story. He's sitting at his desk, and a home girl, a cholita, who's had already a history, is sitting across from his desk. She has just received some sort of help from Homeboy Industries, which is the gang prevention and rehabilitation program that Greg Boyle founded. This young woman has gone through hell and back, beaten, incarcerated, raped, her kids taken away, you name it. Whatever bad thing has ever happened to anyone has happened to this young woman. So she's crying in gratitude for the help and the support that she has received. And she's trying to compose herself. And amidst sobs, she says to Greg, who all the homeboys and homegirls call G. She says, G, I wish that God could be like you. And Greg Boyle's, Mija, why do you say that? And then she says, because you would let me into heaven. Then both break out in sobs. When we serve with the right spirit, with the right heart, God surprises us by holding up a mirror for us to see our divine selves reflected, our own goodness. Being true to ourselves and in humility is when we are able to join our brothers and sisters in their need, to walk with them, to accompany them, to stand in solidarity with them. I work in the Office of Religious Education of the Archdiocese of Los Angeles. I know the big structure of Catholicism. And what we do is faith formation, religious education, training catechists, forming people. We just recently had a retreat with an Englishman, David Wells. He's got his own biography, and it's really important, but I can't remember what it is. So I'll just say it anyways. What he says, David Wells said something that I never, ever thought about, but it is so true. Education and formation is much more than the mere transferring knowledge and information onto others. He says that education and formation heal the wound of ignorance. I never knew. Education and formation heal the wound of ignorance. During these last 18 months, I have had the good fortune to offer some formation courses in the areas that I thought were important and necessary to talk about. Women's issues, racism in the Hispanic communities, and indigenous theologies and spiritualities. So at the beginning of the year, I invited Mar Muñoz Visoso, who works with the USCCB, the Conference of Bishops of the United States. And she came virtually to offer 3 workshops on how racism is also very present amongst our Hispanic communities. I mean, we can cry about being victims of racism, and it's true, we are victims of racism, but you know what? We are pretty damn racist too, ourselves, amongst ourselves. We think that the lighter skinned ones somewhat deserve better respect than others. We definitely treat our indigenous people like crap, not to mention our Afro descendant brothers as well. She did a wonderful job. Last May, to commemorate the International Women's Day, I was invited, I was honored and baffled when I was invited to address an international group of women to talk about our men's work about Illuman. And they were just mystified by the work that we do. And I told them, I shared with them how important it is for men to heal the wounds that we too are broken. And many of them said, I never knew. I never knew that men were broken and they were suffering. Just recently, last week actually, to commemorate Indigenous Peoples Days, formerly known as Columbus Day, October 12th, we presented a workshop on the beauty and the contribution that the indigenous theologies and spiritualities have to offer to our own. Brothers, at every of these events and other events of ongoing formation and education, people came afterwards, and I was showered with words and gestures of gratitude, deep gratitude. In fact, people were genuinely touched and uplifted by having these opportunities for personal growth. It's quite amazing, really. And the words of David Wells kept ringing behind me. Education heals the wound of ignorance. A religious woman even sent me a message stating that these and other classes have helped her open her eyes, and now she is clear as to what is the purpose of her life. Wow. Again, I am mystified as to the healing power that the little things that we do for others can have. And many times simply by doing our jobs. And we can attest to this ourselves, right? During this wonderful event, Soularize. Isn't it true how uplifted and healed we have been because of the sharings, the teachings, and the breakout rooms? Yesterday was good for me, was beautiful. And I thank you, brothers, for opening your hearts and for being so good to me. I entered the rooms of strange family members. I've never heard that topic ever been discussed in our midst. And what a beautiful moment we had spending together. The second breakout room I entered was on being gay in Illuman. What an enrichment conversation. I am deeply grateful to the brothers who served us with such love and in the grieving circle earlier in the morning. And of course, that closing conversation between Jim, Richard, and Belden. Brothers, I think you all would agree with me. Formation, education, continue to heal the wounds of ignorance and uplift us from that dark mentality, dark attitudes of square thinking. In fact, you know, it dawned to me that education in many countries, they have ministries of education because it's a service. It's a service to the community. Life is good, you know that, and we know that. It is hard, but it is also good, and it is sweet. And we can offer so much. But also, the world we live in gives us another alternative, and that is the alternative of cynicism and despair. And it might try to make us believe that our contributions amount to nothing. I want to say to you, brothers, that's bullshit. And that I would like to share with you this poem by Antonio Machado that reminds us that we must make inroads in hope and in love in our service and in our accompaniment to others. Allow me to indulge me to say it in Spanish while you read it in English. Caminante, son tus huellas el camino y nada más. Caminante, no hay camino, se hace camino al andar. Al andar se hace camino y al volver la vista atrás se ve la senda que nunca se ha de volver a pisar. Caminante, no hay camino, sino estelas en la mar. Aho, brothers. Thank you. Bob?
Aho, Giovanni, thank you. And Gino, thank you. Both of you with such powerful messages. And I can say I attended the workshops that Giovanni did on racism and indigenous peoples, and they were fabulous. They were just wonderful. So I'm grateful for that. This time of COVID has become for me a blessing that I simply did not expect. I've been busy about so many things, especially in how I was able to find a way to stay in service of others. I spent some of my time doing spiritual direction or spiritual companionship. And I wanted to make it possible for directees to have access to me. So one of the first things I did was subscribe to Zoom. I'm just sorry I didn't have any stock in Zoom because I think it would have been rich by now. It has made it possible for virtual sessions with my directees. And I quickly learned that this tool could be used for so many things. I learned to use it for raising funds for Catholic Relief Services, which is the agency of the US Catholic bishops to work towards the eradication of poverty in our world. It served to promote Catholic social doctrine, which is one of the best kept secrets of the Catholic Church because it touches real life, hitting poverty and justice directly with the gospel teaching. Many of you know for the last 11 years, I have been involved in raising awareness to the tragedy of human trafficking in our modern times, modern slavery. During those years, I have helped organize an annual in-person walk on Hollywood Boulevard. Illumin SoCal has played a significant role in that event over the years. The 2021 walk had to be done virtually. And the result was that we had participation from all over the world, including Africa and Europe. In fact, one of our speakers for the event was a woman religious, this is during the COVID time, who lives in Ireland. And it was just an amazing event. It's been a privilege to work with Giovanni and several others on Illumin en Español. We developed a worldwide outreach to men who found us through our website and Facebook page and gather with us monthly to sit, share, and reflect, often using teachings of Richard Rohr translated into Spanish. We've held de retiros, that's retreats online. Our work has reached Mexico and Latin America, including Brazil. They join us with their Portuguese because they can understand Spanish. And it's just, they're wonderful men. They've actually formed circles in their own Brazil. We also have a brother from the Czech Republic who speaks Spanish and Czech, who has found a second home with us. Illumin SoCal asked Giovanni, Sergio Lopez, who is a young brother from our chapter, and me to design and conduct a spiritual leadership retreat. We worked on it over the year, and earlier this month, it was conducted. We used Illumin traditions of counsel and our touchstones as the foundation of the retreat. Jim Clark was our weaver, and we are happy to share that this effort called forth new chapter leadership from our SoCal brothers. Men who just came forth from this experience, men that we never oftentimes thought of as leaders, and now there they are. I know I can go on, but I want to make a point. And the point is that service comes from having the fire in your belly to keep loving, to keep trusting, and to keep moving in whatever way one can to do the transforming work that was begun in us. This echoes Philippians 1:16. I am confident of this, that the one who began good work in you will continue to complete it until the day of Christ Jesus. Terry Chapman yesterday in his sharing said something to the effect of letting go of my capacity to let something new open up. Letting go of my capacity, in other words, to go beyond the limits of what we think we can do and let something open up. During the pandemic, I attended the Liberty and Justice course that was conducted by our brothers Byron McMillan and Bill Clark. I can't tell you how significant and providential it was to have engaged in this virtual event during the trials of the racial tension and struggles our nation went through during this COVID time. Black Lives Matter, the elections, the Capitol insurrection, etc., all was significant in so many ways during this time. But the poignant moment for me came one day when I went to Target to do some shopping. It was in the heat of the anti-Asian violence that was taking place alongside the Black Lives Matters movement. I went to the cashier to pay for my things, and the cashier happened to be a middle-aged Asian woman. Well, I can be a chatterbox almost anywhere, so I started or tried to engage her in what I considered to be a polite, everyday conversation. Suddenly, I noticed that the woman was weeping. I asked if she was all right and asked if I had offended her. She finally began to speak, saying, "No, you didn't offend me. Most people come through the line and just treat me like a worker, oftentimes just ignore me or are talking on their cell phones. You talked to me like a real person and asked me how I was." Could you imagine that? I asked her how she was, and it brought tears to her eyes. I shared this story with Byron, telling him how important his program was in helping me to be more alert to people of all backgrounds. There's another story that I shared with him, but I'll do that. I'll let that go for now. So brothers, service for me during COVID was just showing up and being present to everything and everyone I could possibly be present to in whatever manner it could be done safely. Like we're doing here, like we're doing now. Being touched with by each other in a way that's profound, and yet we long for that moment where we can actually embrace one another physically. Presence and awareness can only happen when we look for it. Otherwise, it can just pass us by, like being blown away by the wind, instead of moving along with it. I'm going to conclude my sharing with a story written by a great American hero. Walking with the Wind, a story by John Lewis about a group of young children, a wood-framed house, and a windstorm. I, John Lewis, was 4 years old, too young to understand that there was what adults called a world war. You see, the only world John knew was the world of thick pine trees and white cotton fields, red clay roads winding around the family home in his corner of Pike County, Alabama. John goes on, "My father bought the property from a local white businessman who lived nearby for a cash purchase of $300. That was every penny my father had to his name. Almost every neighbor we had in those woods was a sharecropper like my father, and most were also relatives. On one afternoon, about 15 children were outside John's aunt's house, playing in her dirt yard. The sky began clouding over. The wind picked up. Lightning flashed, and suddenly John wasn't thinking about playing anymore. No, he said, I'd seen fields catch on fire after a hit to a haystack. I'd watched trees explode when a bolt of lightning struck them, the sap inside rising to an instant boil, the trunk swelling until it burst its bark. No, lightning terrified me. John's mother would usually comfort him, but wasn't there that particular afternoon. His aunt was the only adult around. As the sky blackened, she herded all the children inside her small house. The wind was howling now, and the house was starting to shake. They were all scared. Then it got worse. The floor began to buckle, and the corner of the room began to lift. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The storm was pulling the house toward the sky with us inside. My aunt, Seneva, had us clasp hands, then had us walk as a group toward the corner of the room that was rising. Then we walked back in the other direction as another end of the house began to lift. The weight of our 15 small bodies was holding the trembling house down. More than a century passed since that day, and it struck John more than once that our society is not unlike the children in that house, who were rocked again and again by the winds of one storm or another, the walls seeming at times as if they might fly apart. It seemed that way at the height of the civil rights movement of the 1960s, when America felt as if our house might burst at the seams. So much tension, so many storms. Then John adds, but the people of conscience never left the house. We never ran away. We stayed, came together and did the best we could, clasping hands and moving toward the corner of the house that was the weakest. We knew another storm would come, and we would have to do it all over again. We did, and we still do. All of us, you and me. We are children holding hands, walking with the wind. Aho.
Oh,
So my brothers, before we send you out to your wander and give you the prompt, does either Giovanni or Gino wish to add a final remark?
Yes, two very quick. So as part of COVID, we went to Canada to visit my husband's family. And as many of you men know, the boarding schools, both within the Northern Hemisphere, the US and Canada, has been a remarkable point of grieving in regards to institutional abuse for Native folks over the years. Here in Albuquerque, there is a site of grieving we have gone to. But as part of COVID, when the borders opened up, we spent 3 weeks up in Canada. Part of that for me was meeting with John Jatan, another non-native Illuman from Calgary, who drove to meet me in British Columbia. And he and I together went to Kamloops to the boarding school, and we offered prayer and tobaccos as two Illuman men who want to be part of healing. And it was in that process of being in Kamloops that we saw two other Native brothers walking around. And it just so happened, we couldn't have worked, it was a God thing, that one of them was Chief Kenny Moccasin, who was from the Saltu tribe band over in Saskatchewan. And he and I started talking. And I asked him, brother, how can I pray for you? And he shared this with me, which I share with you, is he said, our culture does not allow hate to enter our hearts. That no matter the abuse, the grief, the pain that we are dealing with, we only speak words of healing and only words of love. And we do not allow hate to enter our hearts. And that ricocheted with the men in recovery who have taught me the importance of finding through these tools and paths, where do I still harbor hate in my heart? And to do the work so that that can be removed by a power greater than ourselves. So that is some good medicine, some healing wisdom that I share with you. And that is my parting thought.
Thank you, Gino. If I may, Bob.
Yeah.
So Jim Clark invited us last night to invite the Dreammaker, and the Dreammaker showed up. I do dream very vividly, and I remember my dreams, so I'm not gonna bore you with all the details. But this is what I remember. Bob and I are I'm supposed to be doing some sort of report, but Bob tells me very sternly, I have to unpack this later on, but he says to me, you were a major disappointment for Bishop Clark. Now, Jim Clark knows who Bishop Clark is. And Bob kept repeating this a couple of times throughout my dream. And then I finally said, I don't give a shit if I am a disappointment to Bishop Clark. I remember a couple of brothers a few umbrales ago very worried about that they did not have the support of their parish priest or the pastor, whatever, to do good work. And I repeated to them the words of a German friend, Rudi Finke, who dedicated his life to serve the Hispanic community here in LA. He says, you don't need permission to do good. Oh, brothers.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, we do not need permission to do good. That's powerful. So brothers, we're going to send you, first of all, before we go, if you are skilled with counsel, caring, and would like to be a stoker for a council, put an asterisk in your name or in the front of your name. And then that way, when they set up the groups, they can make sure that at least one brother who has council experience can be in that council. All right. You're going to be invited to come back in at the 55 minutes after the hour. So you'll have a full hour to enjoy your wander. And as you go into your wander, this is your prompt. Go outdoors to wander and feel the wind, or even if it's just a little breeze, but experience how and to where it moves you. Experience how and to where it moves you. Aho, brothers, thank you so much. And we love you.
Oh, brother.
Brothers, if anybody needs anything or has any questions, I am still here, but we would recommend you go ahead and enjoy your wandering.